Ryan sat on a hard chair in the bank office. His hands were shaking a little. His suit was clean but old. The sleeves were too short. His shoes had small cuts, but he had polished them the best he could. Across the big table, 3 bank officers sat. Their chairs were soft, their ties expensive. They looked at Ryan's file with cold eyes. "So, you want a loan?" one of them said, raising an eyebrow. "Yes, sir," Ryan said softly. "To start a small tech company. I have the plan here." He handed them a printed sheet. It was neat and carefully written. Ryan had spent 3 nights writing it. He didn't sleep much. He wanted it to be perfect. One of the bankers read the paper, then passed it to the others. Slowly, all 3 began to smile. Then one of them laughed. "You? Start a company," he said loudly, pointing at Ryan's shoes. "You can't even afford proper shoes. And you think we'll trust you with money." The second banker joined in, laughing harder. "What's next? You'll build the next Apple." The third banker leaned back in his chair. "Look, kid," he said, "go get a job. You people don't start companies. You work in them. Maybe clean the floors." Ryan felt a hot pain in his chest. His throat burned. His hands gripped the table tightly. But he didn't speak. He didn't cry. He just stood up slowly. His eyes were calm, but they had a fire inside. "Thank you for your time," he said. He picked up his papers and walked out of the office. As he left, he heard the sound of laughter behind him. Outside the bank, Ryan stopped and took a deep breath. The sky was gray. A cold wind blew, but his heart was burning. He looked up and whispered to himself, "Just wait. You'll remember this moment." Ryan walked through the crowded streets of the city. Cars honked, people rushed, but he didn't notice any of it. His mind was racing. He reached a small building and climbed the old stairs to the second floor. He opened a wooden door quietly. Inside, his mother was lying on a bed. Her face was pale. She had been sick for months. Medicine was expensive. Doctor visits cost too much. Ryan worked small jobs, but it was never enough. She saw him and smiled weakly. "Did the bank give the loan?" she asked. Ryan sat beside her and held her hand. He smiled, even though it hurt. "They laughed," he said softly. "They said I can't do it." His mother's smile faded. She looked away, ashamed. "I'm sorry, Veda. You do so much for me. And still." "No, Amma," Ryan said quickly. "Don't say sorry. You are my strength. One day, I'll give you everything. A new home. The best doctors. I promise." Tears came to his mother's eyes. "But how?" she whispered. "They didn't believe in you." "I don't need them to believe," Ryan said. "I believe in myself. That's enough." That night, while his mother slept, Ryan sat at an old table with a dim bulb above him. His laptop was secondhand, slow, and cracked at one corner. But it worked. He opened it and stared at the screen. He had no money, no help, no office, just a dream, a broken laptop, and a fire inside his heart. He searched online, how to make money without investment. He searched freelancing jobs for beginners. He searched success stories of people with nothing. Each story he read gave him more strength. He read about a man who started a business in a garage, a woman who built a company from her kitchen, a boy who learned coding on YouTube and became rich. If they can do it, Ryan whispered, so can I. He opened a free online course. It taught website building. He had never done it before, but he started learning. Click after click, video after video. His eyes got tired, but he didn't stop. At 3:00 a.m., his head dropped on the keyboard. He had fallen asleep without noticing. The next morning, he woke up with keyboard marks on his face and a small smile on his lips. For the first time in days, he felt something new. Hope. He looked at his sleeping mother and said, I don't know how, but I will make it. He opened the laptop again and started learning. The world had laughed at him, but he had just started writing his own story. And this time, he would be the one laughing in the end. Ryan woke up the next morning with a clear purpose. His mother was still asleep, and the apartment was quiet. The only sound was the clicking of his laptop keys as he worked on his first website. He had no idea what he was doing at first, but the more he learned, the more he loved it. Day after day, he worked late into the night. His eyes were tired, and his fingers ached from typing, but he didn't mind. He was building something for himself and for his mother. He had to make it work. There was no other choice. It wasn't easy. His laptop was slow, sometimes freezing in the middle of a project. The internet connection wasn't fast enough to handle large files, but Ryan didn't stop. When the website didn't load, he would restart his computer. When the code wouldn't work, he would search for answers online. He learned to be patient with himself. Weeks went by, and little by little, his skills grew. He made his first website for a small local business, an online bakery. The bakery owner was impressed. "This looks great. I'll pay you $100, the owner said. It wasn't much, but to Ryan, it felt like a huge victory. He had earned his first payment, and more than that, he had proven to himself that he could do it. The money wasn't enough to cover the bills, but it gave Ryan hope. He used it to buy better software and upgraded his laptop a little. He worked on small freelance jobs he found online, using every opportunity to learn something new. He learned to build better websites, design logos, and even write simple apps. Slowly, his name started getting noticed on the freelancer websites. Ryan's life was busy. He would wake up early, work on his projects, and then go to the small convenience store nearby to grab something to eat. His mother still didn't know how much Ryan was struggling. She would often ask him, "How's your work going, Beta?" Ryan would smile and tell her, "It's going well, Amma. I'm learning a lot." He didn't want her to worry. She had enough to deal with her illness. Ryan knew that as long as he could keep working hard, things would get better. He was learning, growing, and getting stronger every day. He was no longer just the young man who had walked out of the bank with a broken heart. He was becoming someone else, someone who was learning to fight for his dreams. One evening, after finishing a project for a client, Ryan received a message from a stranger. The message read, "Hello, I saw your work online. I think you have potential. I need someone to help me with a project. If you're interested, let me know." The message was simple, but something about it caught Ryan's attention. He opened the sender's profile and saw that it was a person named Zane, a businessman who ran a tech company. Ryan had never heard of him, but the profile seemed legitimate. Ryan's heart raced. This could be the opportunity he had been waiting for. He replied quickly, "I'm interested. Can you tell me more about the project?" Zane responded within minutes. "It's a big job. I'm building a new app that will change how businesses track their sales. I need someone who knows websites and apps. We can start small, but if you do well, it could lead to more work." Ryan's hands shook as he read the message. This was it. This was the chance he had been hoping for. He quickly sent a reply, saying, "I can do it. I'm ready to start." Within hours, Zane sent over the details of the project. It was complicated, but Ryan didn't hesitate. He read through the instructions and got to work immediately. The first few days were tough. The project was much bigger than anything Ryan had ever worked on, but he took his time, reading every piece of the instructions carefully. If something didn't make sense, he would search online or watch tutorials. Slowly, the pieces of the project started to fall into place. He was building the app just like Zane had asked, but with a little bit of his own touch. He wanted to make it perfect. As the days passed, Ryan found himself getting better and faster. What had once taken him hours now only took minutes. He could see the changes in himself. He was no longer the same person who had walked into that bank months ago. He was becoming someone who could create, build, and make things happen. Zane checked the app's progress regularly and sent Ryan messages praising his work. "You're doing an amazing job," Zane would say. "This is exactly what I wanted." By the time the app was finished, Ryan felt a sense of pride he had never felt before. He had built something from nothing. He had taken a small idea, a few lines of code, and turned it into a fully functional app. Zane was impressed. He paid Ryan a large sum of money for the work and offered him more projects in the future. Ryan couldn't believe it. He had just earned more than he had ever imagined. But more than that, he had gained confidence. He had proven to himself that he was capable. He was no longer just dreaming about success. He was living it. That night, he went to his mother's room and sat by her side. She had always believed in him, even when he had doubts about himself. Now, Ryan was ready to show her the future he had promised. "I did it, Amma," he whispered softly. "I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm closer. We're going to be okay." As the weeks passed, Ryan's reputation began to grow. His freelance work became more than just a job. It was his passion. Every day, he learned something new. The projects he once struggled with now seemed easy, and he felt more confident with every line of code he wrote. Ryan's small successes were starting to add up. He had created websites for several local businesses, designed logos, and even helped small startups with their app development. His clients were happy with his work, and word started to spread. One evening, Ryan sat in his small apartment, staring at his laptop screen. It had been a long day, filled with meetings and deadlines. His eyes were tired, and his back hurt from sitting at the desk for hours. But he couldn't stop. He had to keep going. Suddenly, an email popped up on his screen. It was from Zane, the businessman who had hired him months ago to work on the app. Ryan hadn't heard from him in a while, so he quickly opened the email. "Ryan," the email began, "I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because we're working on a major new project. I need someone who can lead the development of a new tech platform. This is a huge opportunity, and I think you're the perfect person for the job." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Lead the development. This was more than he could have ever imagined. A few months ago, he was just trying to learn how to build websites. Now, someone was offering him the chance to lead a whole project. The email continued, "We've been impressed with your work so far, and I believe you have the skills and vision to help us succeed. If you're interested, let's discuss the details. I look forward to hearing from you." Ryan could hardly believe what he was reading. He quickly typed a response. "I'm very interested. I would love to hear more about the project. When can we meet?" He hit send, and within minutes, Zane replied with the time and place to meet. It was set. The next day, Ryan would meet Zane to discuss the biggest opportunity of his life. The next morning, Ryan woke up early, his mind racing with excitement and nerves. He put on his best shirt, clean and pressed, and made his way to the meeting. The building where they were meeting was tall and shiny, filled with businesses and high-level professionals. As Ryan entered the lobby, he felt out of place. The floors were polished, the walls made of glass, and the people walked by in suits and expensive shoes. But Ryan didn't let that stop him. He straightened his back and walked to the elevator with determination. When he arrived at the office, Zane was already waiting for him. Zane was a tall, confident man in his 40s, wearing a sharp suit. He greeted Ryan with a firm handshake and a smile. "I'm glad you could make it," Zane said. "Please, have a seat." They sat down at a conference table, and Zane wasted no time. "Ryan, as I mentioned in my email, we're working on a new platform that could change the way businesses operate online. It's ambitious, and it's going to require a team of experts. I want you to lead that team." Ryan felt his heart race. Lead a team. He had never done that before, but he didn't let his nerves show. "What would I need to do?" Ryan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Zane smiled. "You'll be responsible for developing the platform, choosing the right team members, and ensuring everything runs smoothly. You'll have support, of course, but I believe you have the skills to lead." Ryan listened carefully, absorbing every word. This was it, the moment he had been working for. He had gone from being laughed at by the bankers to being offered a leadership position at a tech company. He knew this was his chance to make a real impact. Zane continued, "The project will take several months to complete, and we'll need someone who can keep everything on track. If you agree, I'll introduce you to the team and get you started right away." Ryan's mind was racing. Could he really do this? Could he lead a team? He thought about the long nights he had spent learning, the endless hours working on his projects. He had worked hard to get to this point. This was the next step. He looked at Zane and nodded. "I'm in. I'll do it." Zane extended his hand, and they shook on it. "Welcome aboard, Ryan. I knew you were the right person for this job." The days blurred into weeks, and Ryan found himself fully immersed in the project. He woke up every morning feeling the weight of his responsibilities. Leading a team wasn't easy. There were countless meetings, long hours, and endless decisions to make. But he was determined to make this work. Ryan had spent so much time building the app with his team, and now the platform was beginning to take shape. It was powerful, fast, and intuitive. The design was sleek, and the features worked perfectly. Everyone on the team was excited. They believed in the project. But just as they were about to make their final push to launch, trouble began to stir. One afternoon, Ryan was sitting at his desk, reviewing some data from the platform, when he received a sudden call from Zane. His voice was urgent. "Ryan, we have a problem," Zane said. "Our biggest investor just pulled out. He's backing out of the project completely." Ryan's heart sank. They had been relying on this investor for a large portion of the funding. Without it, they would struggle to complete the project. He leaned back in his chair, trying to process the news. "Are we going to be able to continue?" Ryan asked, his voice tight. "We have to," Zane replied firmly. "But it's going to be harder. We need to figure out a way to keep moving forward. This is a huge step back." Ryan put the phone down slowly, his mind racing. The team had worked so hard, and now everything was at risk. He couldn't let it fall apart. He knew they couldn't rely on anyone else. They had to figure out a way to solve this themselves. That night, Ryan stayed up late, thinking of a solution. The pressure was overwhelming, but he refused to give up. He had come too far to back down now. By morning, Ryan had a plan. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. He called for an urgent meeting with the team. They gathered in the conference room, a sense of worry hanging in the air. The atmosphere was tense. Ryan stood at the front of the room, his heart pounding. He had to be strong for his team. "I know things look bad right now," Ryan began, "but we can't afford to quit. We've worked too hard for this. We've come too far. The investor pulling out is a setback, yes, but we are not giving up." The team members exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what to do. Ryan could feel their doubts, but he pushed forward. "We're going to find new investors. We're going to cut costs where we can, and we're going to keep moving. But we need all of you to believe in this as much as I do. If we work together, we can still make this happen." Ryan's words had a calming effect. Slowly, the team began to nod, their confidence returning. It wasn't the perfect solution, but it was something. And that was enough to keep them going. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. Ryan and his team worked harder than ever, reaching out to new investors, cutting unnecessary expenses, and pushing themselves to meet the project's deadlines. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when Ryan wasn't sure they would make it. But he refused to show his doubts. He kept his focus on the end goal. One evening, just as the team was starting to feel the pressure, they received a breakthrough. One of the new investors, a tech company interested in the platform, agreed to step in and fund the project. It wasn't as much as they had hoped for, but it was enough to get them through the finish line. Ryan couldn't believe it. The team had made it through the darkest moment. They had pulled together and found a way to keep the project alive. Ryan had learned that true leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about keeping your team motivated and focused, even when things seemed impossible. But just as Ryan thought things were starting to settle down, the real challenge arrived. He called an emergency meeting with his team, and once again, he stood in front of them, ready to lead. "We don't have time to waste," Ryan said, his voice steady and full of confidence. "We're going to work day and night to get this platform ready. We're going to launch it before they do. We've come this far. We can't back down now." In the morning, Ryan received an urgent email from Zane. The project was facing a new, even bigger obstacle. A major competitor, a giant tech company, was about to launch a very similar platform, and they were willing to pay huge sums of money to beat Ryan's team to market. Ryan felt a wave of panic wash over him. This wasn't just about losing funding now. It was about losing the whole project. His heart raced. If they didn't launch their platform soon, they could be wiped out by this competitor. The team had worked so hard, but the clock was ticking. Zane's email read, "Ryan, this is bad. They have more resources than we do. If we don't move fast, we'll lose everything. We need to launch our platform as soon as possible. We need your leadership now more than ever." Ryan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the challenge on his shoulders. He thought about all the sacrifices, all the late nights, and all the hard work that had brought them to this point. He couldn't let it all go to waste. Not now. The pressure was suffocating, but as he sat there, he reminded himself of what he had learned in the past few months. He had learned how to push through, how to lead when things were tough, and how to stay focused on the goal. Ryan stood up, his determination stronger than ever. He was going to fight for this project. He wasn't going to let a big competitor take everything they had worked for. The day of the launch arrived faster than Ryan had expected. The team had worked relentlessly for weeks, sleepless nights blending into long days. Every detail had been meticulously planned, every bug tested and fixed, and every feature optimized. They were ready. Ryan stood in front of the team, his heart pounding in his chest. His thoughts were a mix of excitement and anxiety. The stakes had never been higher. Their competitors, the giant tech company, were waiting to see if they could outperform Ryan's team, and the market was about to decide who would lead the industry. The office was buzzing with energy as the team gathered around their computers, ready to launch the platform. The moment had come, and Ryan knew this was it, the moment that would define everything. "All right," Ryan said, his voice cutting through the room. "This is what we've been working for. Everyone, stay focused. We've come too far to turn back now." As the countdown began, Ryan felt his breath catch. He knew that the competitor was launching their platform the same day. They had the resources, the money, and the reputation. But Ryan had something they didn't. He had a team that was willing to work together, to sacrifice, and to push through no matter what. The final seconds ticked away. Ryan's hand hovered over the keyboard, ready to hit the launch button. His mind raced, flashing back to all the moments that led him here. The rejection from the bank, the laughter from the investors, and the long, sleepless nights working alongside his team. And now, it all came down to this one moment. With a deep breath, Ryan clicked the button. The platform went live. The room erupted in cheers, but Ryan's mind was elsewhere. His eyes were fixed on the computer screen, watching as users began to flood the platform. He knew this was just the beginning. Now, they needed to prove themselves. They needed to show the world that their platform was better, faster, and more reliable than anything the competitors had to offer. The minutes felt like hours as they waited for the first signs of success. Then the data started to pour in. Users were signing up, using the features, and leaving positive feedback. The platform was gaining traction. Ryan's heart lifted, but there was still no time to relax. They were in the middle of a battle, and the fight wasn't over yet. Just as Ryan began to feel a sense of relief, the first wave of bad news hit. The competitor's platform went live, and it was just as good, if not better, than theirs. The media buzzed with reports about the new launch, and the pressure mounted. But Ryan refused to let doubt creep in. He had faced challenges before, and he would face them again. He knew that they couldn't outspend the competitor, but they could outwork them. They could offer something that the big tech company couldn't: personalized, human-centered service. Ryan immediately called another meeting with his team. They needed to act fast, and they needed a strategy to set them apart. "We can't compete on size or resources," Ryan said, pacing back and forth in front of the team. "But we can compete on quality. We're going to focus on customer service. We'll provide support, fix bugs quickly, and respond to feedback faster than they can. Our users need to feel like they're valued, like they matter. Let's make that our advantage." The team agreed, and they got to work. They quickly launched a customer feedback system, offering live chat support and frequent updates based on user suggestions. They also began building partnerships with smaller businesses, offering them a platform where they could reach a wider audience. For the next few weeks, Ryan and his team poured everything they had into the platform. They worked day and night, monitoring the feedback, fixing problems, and constantly improving their service. Slowly but surely, they started to notice a change. Their user base was growing, and the competitor's platform, while popular, began to show cracks. There were glitches, slow response times, and complaints about lack of support. People were getting frustrated, and they began to flock to Ryan's platform, which was stable, responsive, and always improving. Ryan knew the war wasn't won yet. There were still challenges to face, and the competitor was still a major player in the game. But he could feel the tide beginning to turn. His team was fighting back with everything they had. Ryan had fought for everything he had: his company, his team, and his vision. He had endured rejection, mockery, and hardship. But now, the moment of truth was at hand. The competition had become fierce, and the landscape of the tech industry was shifting. His company's platform was gaining momentum, but the larger competitor was not giving up easily. The stakes had never been higher. The battle for the top spot was coming to a head, and everything was on the line. The company's future, Ryan's dreams, and the well-being of his team all hung in the balance. But Ryan refused to let fear dictate his actions. He had built this company with determination, and now, more than ever, he was ready to see it through to the end. The competitor, the giant tech corporation, had launched a final, all-out marketing blitz. The world seemed to be bombarded with their ads, sponsored articles, and celebrity endorsements. It was as if they were trying to drown out Ryan's hard-earned progress with sheer volume. But Ryan knew that they could not compete in the same way. Money might buy attention, but it could not buy the trust and loyalty of real people. Ryan gathered his core team for one final meeting before they launched the next big update. Their eyes were weary from the long months of work, but their determination had only grown stronger. They had come this far, and they weren't about to back down now. "We know what they're doing," Ryan said, standing at the head of the table. "They're trying to overwhelm us, drown us out with their money and their resources. But they can't take away the one thing we have, that connection with our users. We built this platform from the ground up because we care about our customers. We listen to them, we solve their problems, and we treat them like family." His voice was strong, steady, and full of conviction. "They can spend all the money they want, but they can't buy what we've built. We've earned the trust of our users, and that's what's going to win this." The team nodded in agreement. Ryan could feel their energy and passion reigniting. They were no longer just a startup. They were a force to be reckoned with. A company built on real relationships, not just profits. They had something the big players couldn't buy: heart. "We're going to fight this battle on our terms," Ryan continued. "We're not going to spend millions on ads. We're going to focus on what we do best: making our users' lives easier and building a community around our platform. We're going to reach out to our users, ask for their feedback, and show them that we are here for the long haul." It was decided. The next update would not just focus on new features. It would highlight how much they valued their users. They were going to build a true community, something that no amount of money could replicate. And so, the team set to work. The update was launched. But it wasn't just another technical upgrade. This was a statement. Ryan's company had added a feature that allowed users to create their own content, share ideas, and directly engage with the team. They introduced live feedback sessions where users could ask questions and get answers in real time. It was a bold move, one that showed just how much the company valued its users' input. As soon as the update went live, the reaction was immediate. Users flooded the platform with messages of support, sharing their thoughts, ideas, and feedback. They were excited because they felt like they were part of something bigger. They weren't just customers. They were contributors to something that was growing and evolving with them. And as they interacted, they realized that Ryan's platform was more than just another tech product. It was a revolution in how companies interacted with their customers. Word spread quickly, and soon, even the media began to take notice. The sound of celebration was palpable as Ryan walked through the doors of his company's headquarters, now standing tall and proud. The halls were filled with excitement, with employees congratulating each other, knowing that they had just crossed a huge milestone. Ryan had achieved something remarkable. His small company had now grown into one of the most successful tech platforms on the market. As the weeks passed, Ryan's company gained more traction, surpassing the giant competitor that once mocked him. They had launched the platform globally, and the response was overwhelming. Users from all over the world were signing up, engaging with the platform, and most importantly, they felt heard. This was what set Ryan's company apart, his genuine care for his customers. His company was more than just a product, it was a community. And now that community had grown into something unimaginable. With the new funding from the venture capital firm, Ryan was able to enhance the platform's features, bringing even more innovation to the table. He invested heavily in developing cutting-edge technology, ensuring that the platform wasn't just keeping up with the industry's trends, but setting them. He knew that to stay ahead, he had to continuously evolve, but he was determined to do so in a way that would always stay true to his mission of empowering his users. But even as Ryan celebrated his victories, he never lost sight of the values that had gotten him this far. He spent less time in boardrooms and more time listening to the voices of his users. He wanted to ensure that the company remained connected to its roots, the values of empathy, integrity, and dedication that had allowed him to turn rejection into success. He made it a priority to personally meet with the customer support teams, hear their feedback, and even engage with users directly in online forums. One evening, as Ryan was sitting in his office, reflecting on everything that had happened, he received a call. It was from the same bank that had rejected him all those months ago, the same bankers who had laughed at his dreams. They wanted to meet with him. Intrigued, Ryan agreed to the meeting. The meeting was set in one of the city's most upscale restaurants. As Ryan entered the room, he was greeted by the bankers who had once dismissed him. They were dressed in their usual suits, their expressions now respectful, no longer mocking or condescending. "Ryan," one of them began, his voice sincere. "We've been following your company's progress, and we have to admit, we were wrong. You've built something truly extraordinary, and we're impressed by how far you've come." Ryan nodded, but he wasn't interested in their praise. He had long since moved past the point of seeking validation from those who had doubted him. However, he knew this moment was important. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about showing them how far determination, innovation, and staying true to one's values could take a person. "I appreciate your words," Ryan said, calmly. "But the truth is, I didn't do this for recognition or to prove anything to anyone. I did it because I believed in my idea, and I wanted to make a difference. This company was never about me. It was about creating something that would help people." The bankers were silent for a moment, perhaps realizing just how far Ryan had come. After a few beats, the same banker spoke again. "We want to offer you a partnership," he said. "We understand now what you've built, and we want to be part of it. We see potential in your company, and we would like to help you take it even further." Ryan's first instinct was to politely decline. He didn't need them anymore. He had already succeeded, and he wasn't interested in playing the corporate game. But as he thought for a moment, he realized that a partnership could provide the right resources to continue his mission, to grow even bigger, to reach more people, and to do even more good in the world. "I'll consider it," Ryan said with a thoughtful expression. As time went on, Ryan accepted the partnership, but he did so on his terms. He remained the driving force behind his company, ensuring that the mission never wavered. His core team remained in place, and the culture of innovation, empathy, and user-centered values continued to thrive. The partnership allowed Ryan's company to expand further, launching into new markets and continuing to push boundaries. But Ryan was still grounded, always reminding himself of the time when he had been laughed at, rejected, and dismissed. He used that memory not as a point of bitterness, but as a fuel for constant growth and improvement.